The Gulf of Mexico has been relabeled on Google Maps to the Gulf of America.
How do you feel about the Gulf of Mexico being changed to the Gulf of America?
So now I own property on the Gulf of America.
What does that really mean for anyone who uses the app?
Anyone actually calling it the Gulf of America?
Yet again, is he fucking serious? Is he serious?
Yeah, and Donald Trump in his press conference today, he's not real happy with that name. Yeah, he's like, why is that the Gulf of Mexico when the United States is all around it? Shouldn't it be called the Gulf of America?
Let's go to raremaps.com and click the North American category. Just 2 maps down, we have a map that doesn't look quite right. Published in 1544, it is accurate enough that you can probably tell that this is North America. There is modern-day Florida, Cuba, and the Gulf of Mexico, just to name a few recognizable places. But there is a giant sea right in the middle of it. I've covered an inland sea in North America on this channel before, but this is something different.
Delaware, Georgia, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, Alabama, Connecticut are all below or at sea level. So now, that would make sense. When folks state in their prophecy, prediction, and supposedly and allegedly, the Alphabet Boys have a map of how the U.S. is going to look and how the coastline is going to be changed. So basically the coastline is going to move up. So Florida's going to be gone. New York is going to go, Florida's going to go underwater. New York, all of that, and I think it supposedly is going to hit the middle of Georgia. And California is going to split back off into an island, and then the Mississippi is going to flood out also. So where it's going to be split in half. Yes, Purple Pill, Mississippi could turn into the world's largest lake. Yes, that's what I saw in that map. So if all of that was shit, that's pretty much the entire coastline.
What they're doing, they're making the most money off of that land. I mean, people wanting to live at the ocean. I'm going, what for you?
Well, either learn how to build them some shit underwater or get the fuck on. Cause it ain't like Mama Earth haven't been telling them.
I know it.
That the shit's gonna flood. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like she been telling them. So it is what it is.
And eventually I start seeing some very strange things on TV. I start asking questions. And the first thing I noted was the references geographically to the United States, and I noticed severe changes in the coastlines and the interior, and the fact that Europe didn't look at all like when I had remembered it. And I started asking questions. What's happened? What's been going on? That's when they said, I want to see maps of what's happened and some description. Said, it looks like there's been major earth changes. And I said, yes, there have been. It all happened in the period between the beginning of the 21st century and basically the year 2025. Now, well, what happened? So they told me, they showed me maps, and did describe it briefly. The east coast of the United States was rather heavily changed, not as much as the west coast, but neither one for that matter. None of the changes I saw would fit some of the very far out maps promulgated in the late 20th century by various people such as the I Am America group and Michael Gordon Scallion and his series of maps. They were what I would consider the worst case possible scenario, and it didn't happen that way. But what I did see was changes in the East Coast, particularly when you went south towards where Georgia, Carolinas and Georgia is. The Georgia coastline going inland, so that Atlanta, instead of being about 100 miles from the ocean, was only 3 miles from the ocean. A lot of the east coast of Georgia was gone. Parts of North Carolina had been chopped off. Florida was gone completely except for the area of the Panhandle.
Was this on the TV programs that you saw, or did they give you a map?
I saw this in references on the TV program, which they showed pictures of the coastline in reference to something else that we're dealing with. And I see this, I said, what is this? This isn't the way I remember it. So that's when I started asking what's going on, and they gave me the maps. And the Gulf Coast was drastically changed. There was about a 50-mile wide swath north of where we knew the Gulf Coast to be, as it is today, in the beginning of the 21st century. And about 50 miles wide was just gone. It was underwater, which means New Orleans was gone, Houston was gone, Corpus Christi, Texas was gone as such, though it was just barely, because that's a little higher ground there. It was just lowlands that went. And I don't think it was geographic upheaval. It was just a case of the ocean waters have been rising, plus other changes. And the big change in the middle of the country was that the Mississippi became an inland waterway, and a rather wide one, all the way up to the Great Lakes, which then became one lake. Part of the original lakes disappeared, and other parts sank, so that you had one large lake there, which joined with the St. Lawrence Seaway, which became a very large seaway. And the rest of the U.S., the western part, to the other side of the new Mississippi Basin, if you will, was all there, essentially intact, with the exception of California and parts of Oregon and small parts of Washington. California suffered from where the San Andreas Fault came inland. San Andreas Fault cuts into California between San Francisco and San Jose. That's where it cuts inland. It's no longer in the ocean, but it's cutting across land. It goes down basically central California, so that when you get past Los Angeles, it winds up cutting through the middle of the Salton Sea. And much of that section west of that fault line, of the San Andreas Fault line, wound up in the ocean, not all of it. San Diego was gone, parts of Southern California was gone, but the strange part was where Los Angeles was, parts of it was still left. The coastal sections, the beach country was gone, the beach areas were collapsed, the cliffs were collapsed, but areas of the higher sections of Beverly Hills were still there. Pasadena was still there. Downtown Los Angeles is still referred to as the island, because it was on a rock, and there's really an island there, even now, though it's certainly not underwater, but it winds up being surrounded by water. So there were a lot of changes that way.
Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness, it may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger.